Well, folks, Ben Shapiro has released a video on what he feels is the greatest movie franchise of all time. And I'm here because I'm going to list some of my own so that I can destroy Ben Shapiro. And so that I can put in my thumbnail, destroy Ben Shapiro, and piggyback off his success and get lots of views. No, just kidding. I'm not going to destroy Ben Shapiro, but I am definitely going to offer some alternative movie franchises that I feel are absolutely amazing and could be part of anybody's list. One glaring movie that I feel is missing from his list, and I'll talk about that right after this. Hey everyone, I'm Yoel and welcome back to my YouTube channel. So grateful to have you. And today's a very special video. I'm going to discuss my list of amazing movie franchises of all time based on a video I saw from Ben Shapiro, where he goes through quite methodically in his typical way, all sorts of different movie franchises in various categories, arriving at, I didn't get a really clear conclusion. He kind of chose Star Wars, but maybe Lord of the Rings, although he liked Batman with Christopher Nolan. And I understand that it's kind of hard to narrow down one franchise in a huge list like that, because there are different parts of a movie that you can enjoy and appreciate. And by the way, I have to say, I love Ben Shapiro's movie review types of videos. I really find them entertaining. They're funny. He did a video that I saw on Top Gun calling Tom Cruise the last true movie star. And I tend to agree with that, although I think there are some others that I would maybe add to that list as well, but that's for another day. But generally, I really enjoy Ben Shapiro's videos. And when I saw this video on the greatest movie franchise of all time, I thought, you know what? They definitely cover a fair bit in their list over there, but there's certainly more that can be added. And I felt, you know what? Why don't I throw my hat into the ring and see what I can add to the list? And again, there's one movie missing from that list in a very glaring way. I'm going to cover that at the end of the video. But first, just to round off, so I jotted down in my usual non-methodical Ben Shapiro way, just a list of chicken scratch here of different movies that I thought could make a list. Some of them you may find to be a bit out there. Maybe you'll find all of them to be out there, but I think that anybody could really see that these are movie franchises that could be made, that could find its way into a list. Okay, so number one, National Lampoon's.
Point, point, we'll be pigs.
Now, arguably, you can say that this isn't a franchise per se. I'm referring to National Lampoon's Vacation, which, by the way, is my favorite movie of all time. Absolute favorite movie. Chevy Chase is a genius. That movie is hilarious from start to finish. I've seen it dozens of times. It's been a family movie in my family for many years. I've made it into family movies of friends who have enjoyed it as well. I've got a movie poster of National Lampoon's Vacation, and it's really just an amazing, incredibly funny, entertaining movie. And there are so many subtle parts to the movie that are really truly amazing. It takes numerous watchings of the movie in order to really appreciate the deepness of the humor. And that was the first one. That was National Lampoon's Vacation. They followed that up with National Lampoon's European Vacation, which also was hilarious, hysterical, as is usually the case, not always, as Ben pointed out in his video. Terminator 2, I agree, is better than Terminator 1. There are many such instances where the second movie actually does better than the first, but most times the first one is always the best. And in this case as well, National Lampoon's European Vacation, can't say it was as good as the first one, but it definitely was hilariously funny. And then that was followed up with National Lampoon's Christmas Vacation, which is a movie that I try and watch every single year on Christmas. I've done a video about that as well. If I remember, I'll try and link that above. And there's been some others. There's been Vegas Vacation, which is whatever, forgettable. But the point is that I would call that a franchise for sure. And just such hilariously funny movies. I've seen it on so many people's favorite all-time movies lists that I think that's something that could have made it to the list. Now, I know in Ben's video, they didn't have a category for comedy, but I think they easily could have. And I've talked about in another video that I did on Oscar nominations for comedy roles. Comedies tend to get overlooked, but I don't think they should be. I think comedies play an important role in entertainment, especially when things are stressful and we're getting into entertainment to get away from the day-to-day grind. Comedies can provide an amazing outlet for that. And what better way to do it than to do it with a laugh? So to me, National Lampoon's qualifies as a franchise, and that could have been and could be on anybody's list. Now, I also jotted down, again, Ben, if you're watching this, forgive me if I missed this because it was a pretty long video. I'm pretty sure you did not mention Die Hard.
Now I have a machine gun.
And I'm surprised about that. I mean, you've talked about Die Hard in other videos, and I know you're a fan of it. And Bruce Willis, really, that was his breakout role. He just crushed it when that came out, and it was just so enormously popular. Followed up with the Die Hard 2 and then Die Hard 3. And again, in my view, I think that Die Hard 1 was the best of all three movies, but really they're all incredibly entertaining action film. It's interesting. There's a feature on Netflix, at least currently, on a kind of behind the scenes making of Die Hard. And when they thought of casting Bruce Willis, they didn't think of him as the typical action star. He's not the biggest guy out there. Arnold Schwarzenegger, for example, comes to mind. And he wasn't necessarily seen as this big, rough and tough type of guy. He had to beef up a lot for the role. And this was back in the days where it wasn't as easy to beef up for roles. But Bruce Willis ended up taking that part and just blowing it out of the water. And I know that Ben has talked about Die Hard and his love for the movie. So I'm kind of surprised, unless I missed it, I'm kind of surprised that it didn't make his list. I think the Die Hard franchise is a movie that could be on anybody's all-time favorite franchises list. Next, I have something that's a bit of a twist on this. It's actually animated Toy Story.
Toy. T-O-Y. Toy.
Okay, now Toy Story 1, 2, and 3. Again, broken record. Number one, I feel, is the best, but I think they were all extremely entertaining. And the reason why I also wanted to add this to the list is because I find that it's very challenging to find a movie that the entire family can enjoy regardless of the age. I'm obviously not referring to a baby, but anybody that's old enough to watch a movie from a very young age. I know for myself, I've got movie night with my children, and it's always a challenge to find a movie that we can all enjoy. And Toy Story is one of those movies that fits the bill. Okay, not just because it's animated, but because, in one sense, because it's animated, so the children can enjoy it, but also as an adult, anybody who's watched it can really relate to the toys that they feature. The comedic sensibilities of the actors doing the voiceovers, obviously led by Tom Hanks and a host of other actors. And just the script is just hilarious. It really is enough to entertain not just the children, but also the adults watching it along with the children. So to me, Toy Story is easily a franchise that can be on anybody's list. Okay, next, speaking of the comedy genre, there's quite a few here that fit the comedy. In fact, I think most of my list fits under the comedy genre. Austin Powers.
Okay, name. Austin Danger Powers.
Now, this may be a little bit more controversial because really the second was a significant drop from the first, and the third was just a write-off. I did not like the third at all, but still, it was just the first one was just so funny, and so many lines that were used in the movie that Mike Myers introduced continue to this day. I still reference Austin Powers in conversations. So, for example, if somebody's doing a 3-point turn and turning it into like a 20-point turn, I call that pulling an Austin Powers. And there's all sorts of other circumstances where Austin Powers lines make it into the vernacular. And to me, because of that, because it was so influential, not just funny, but also influential in introducing so many different lines that a lot of people use in everyday discussion and conversation, I feel that the Austin Powers franchise deserves to be on anybody's greatest franchises of all time list. And similarly, in the comedy genre, I've got here The Naked Gun.
Nothing to see here, please.
Okay, same story. Number one is definitely the best. Number two is funny, 2.5. The title itself was hilarious. I remember hearing the title for the first time and finding it the funniest thing ever. Naked Gun 2.5. And then there's Naked Gun, I think it's 33 1/3, which again is a significant drop off from the second, which is a drop off from the first. Okay, but still, definitely this was something that really pervaded the culture. I think it was back in the 80s or maybe it was the early 90s. Of course, infamously now, you can say infamously starring O.J. Simpson, and we know where events turned for him, but that's a side point. But Naked Gun, this was kind of iffy. I don't know if I would put it in, although I have watched the first one so many times that I felt that it's good enough that it can make it onto someone's list. But I can definitely see you out there watching this video saying, "What? Are you out of your mind?" So definitely could go either way. But I've included it here on my list. And I wouldn't put this on the comedy in the comedy genre per se. Maybe more action, maybe more of an action film. But Beverly Hills Cop.
They're super cops.
Okay, 1, 2, and 3, and starring Eddie Murphy. This was Eddie Murphy at his prime. Okay, this movie was enormously successful. I don't know what it grossed in the box office. I forgot to look that up before I recorded this video, but it was something that really took the world by storm. Eddie Murphy was already on the map, obviously Saturday Night Live, etc. But this just launched him to the stratosphere. It seemed at the time when the Beverly Hills Cop movies came out, there were a bunch of others with Eddie Murphy, of course, Coming to America, The Golden Child, all sorts of other movies. Eddie Murphy seemed to have been in every single movie that was out. There's quite a few actors, by the way, parenthetically, that I've noticed that. I remember there was a time where it seemed like Helen Hunt was in absolutely every single movie in the theaters. But definitely back to Eddie Murphy and Beverly Hills Cop. I think this was a movie that was just, I wouldn't put it in the same category as a Star Wars, obviously, but certainly it was a highly entertaining movie, enormously successful, launched Eddie Murphy's movie career then. Unfortunately, it's taken a bit of a turn, although he's making a bit of a comeback now, I'm happy to see. But Beverly Hills Cop, I think, deserves to be on anybody's list of top franchises. And then we have another comedy, Meet the Parents.
You a pothead, fucker?
No. What? No.
So again, this is kind of, maybe this should have come more after Naked Gun, because this is kind of really an outsider as well. But I thought Meet the Parents was an hilarious movie, really funny, so many great one-liners. Robert De Niro taking on the comedy role and doing such a fantastic job. Ben Stiller is always funny. And it just goes from one funny scene to the next. Next one, Meet the Fockers. I actually did a video. In my video on the Oscar nominations for comedies, I actually listed Dustin Hoffman as playing Greg Focker's father as a nominee for an Oscar for his performance, because he was just so hilarious. And this Barbara Streisand, by the way, as Ben Stiller's or Greg Focker's mom, was also excellent, I found. And it was a funny movie. It was not as good as Meet the Parents, but it was funny. Little Fockers, again, is a write-off. But still, I thought that because this is a franchise and because I had found this to be highly entertaining and hilarious, definitely starting with the first one, I thought it's fair to put it on my list, although I could easily see you saying this does not belong on a list of top franchises. But finally, I've saved the best for last. And again, apologies if I missed this, because I did try to watch Ben's video again just to make sure I didn't miss it. And I'm pretty sure it was not on the list. And I really have trouble understanding why it's not. And after all that introduction, the movie I'm referring to, of course, is, can you guess it? Back to the Future.
Where?
Back to the Future!
How could Back to the Future not be on a list of top greatest franchises of all time? Okay. Again, even in Ben's list, he acknowledges that the second or third movies of the franchise were not as good necessarily as the first, or maybe the second one for Terminator was better than the first. That's always the case. And certainly there's an argument to be made that of all the three Back to the Futures, although the concept was incredible and a lot of the technology used was amazing, the second was probably pretty, not as good as the first or the third. You can make the argument maybe that the second is better than the third. There's, part of the third, I think, gets a bit mired in the love story for Doc Brown, although I know that's a big part of the plot, but I find that it kind of gets a bit, it kind of drags on after a while. But either way, whether you want to say the second's better than the third or third is better than the second, number one was just so game-changing, launching Michael J. Fox's film career to the stratosphere, although again, subsequently, he didn't do too well in the box office in later movies, unfortunately, although he is definitely one of my favorite actors of all time and people. I've read his books. This is going to be the subject of another video, by the way. He's got a book called Lucky Man, and now I'm forgetting his, I think it's Always Looking Up, his second book. And he also recently wrote a third book. I haven't gotten that one yet. It's definitely on my list, but I digress. But Michael J. Fox just doing a great job, so much so that he was, as I'm sure many of you, if not all of you watching this know, that he was the first choice to be the star as Marty McFly in the Back to the Future movie. But because he was under contract to Gary Goldberg for Family Ties, they couldn't get him. They started with Eric Stoltz, who they always take pains to say was a great actor, but subsequently, after a few weeks of shooting, they realized he just did not fit the bill for what they were looking for, didn't have those comedic sensibilities in their opinion. And then they ended up getting Michael J. Fox, who was kind of moonlighting. He was shooting family ties during the day, then getting shuttled over to shoot Back to the Future in the night. He was maybe sleeping an hour a day. He was sleeping in the car as he was being dragged from one place to the other. And it's incredible that he pulled it off in the way that he did. And of course, in my top Oscar nominations video, I listed there Christopher Lloyd playing the role of Doc Brown. I don't think the movie would be what it would be without Christopher Lloyd's performance as Doc Brown. He really has you buying into the idea of time travel. His zany, crazy energy is amazing. Feeds off with Marty McFly, and also as a more senior actor and very classically trained stage actor at the time, I believe Michael J. Fox, I'm sure, was able to lean heavily on Christopher Lloyd's professionalism. Of course, Emma Thompson was also fantastic in all three of the Back to the Future trilogies. I watched an interview of hers. She's very proud of her performances in these movies in the trilogy, and she really deserves to be proud. She was really incredible, as is Thomas F. Wilson, who does a great job playing Biff, both the younger and the more senior Biffs throughout the trilogy. As well, I'm going to throw in Crispin Glover in the first one. I don't think the movie would have been what it is without Crispin Glover playing Marty McFly's dad, George McFly. He was hilarious. He was nuanced. He had you buying into the idea of what makes George McFly tick and how George McFly was able to go from nerddom to hero-dom, if you will. And really everybody, all the performances in the movie were amazing. I could go on and on about Back to the Future, and there's been endless videos on it, so I'm not going to take too much time, but I am very surprised that Ben did not have Back to the Future on his list. In his defense, I don't think it was Ben who prepared the list. I think it was his staff who prepared it, and he was just choosing from the list of films. But Back to the Future, it's really surprising that it didn't make the list, and arguably it could be said that Back to the Future maybe is the top greatest franchise of all time, and easily it's arguable that Back to the Future is the greatest franchise movie of all time. Although I do agree that I would probably give the nod to Star Wars just for its impact and influence and the themes behind it, the dark side and the Force and everything like that. But Back to the Future definitely is up there, and one can make the case for that being the best franchise of all time. So that concludes my destruction of Ben Shapiro. Just kidding. That concludes my supplemental list to Ben's, if you will, of the greatest movie franchises of all time. I'm very curious to see what you think. Leave in the comments below what you think. What did I miss? Did I miss something that Ben also missed? What did we both miss? Or do you think I'm off my rocker for putting on Meet the Parents, for example, or maybe Naked Gun? I'd be curious to see your comments and your feedback, whether in favor or not. And I hope you enjoyed this video. It was a lot of fun doing it. I really enjoyed Ben's video. Ben, keep doing the entertainment and movie reviews. I really enjoy them. I think you do a great job with them. And thank you all for visiting my channel and for watching this video. And I look forward to seeing you at the next one. Hey guys, this is your annoying reminder to please hit that subscribe button. You'll be helping me out, and you'll also get notified of the next cool video. And check out the other videos on my channel. There's some great stuff over there, all sorts of topics. Take care.